Well, it might have taken 2 overtimes, but the result not the way the Sixers wanted this one to go as they closed out their 3-game road trip with yet another loss. As we welcome you here to Sixers Postgame Live, brought to you by Cure Auto Insurance. I'm Amy Fadool alongside Jim Lynam and Marc Jackson. And guys, we thought they had a chance here. They climbed back in this one late in the game, and then they had some chances at the end of regulation, then at the end of overtime, and double overtime was pretty much all she wrote, Marc.
It was. You know, we just seemed to not be organized and things didn't go our way, and Houston Rockets took advantage of it, unfortunately for us.
Jim, we heard about it all night. This is one of the youngest, second youngest team. Pretty much every starter except for Eric Gordon is 22 or younger, so they're very young. That actually probably helps them. They looked like they had fresh legs out there, and they didn't make as many silly mistakes as I thought the Sixers did.
Yeah, I think the Sixers really hurt themselves dramatically in this game, going end of regulation and into both of the overtimes with really bad turnovers. And they'd done a pretty good job, I thought, up to that point, taking care of the ball. I mean, they made a nice run to come back and I thought get control of this game, but they really stole the opportunity they had to win it from themselves with bad turnovers.
Absolutely. Let's check out the end of this game. That is our Yuengling Presents Lager Up. This is the end of regulation with some James Harden. And this, to me, was a little bit confounding because we all know how much he dribbles the ball, but, Marc, we saw this a lot in the final 2 minutes of regulation. Too much dribbling. Yes,
too much. But, you know, it's just the rhythm, and then the rhythm, he just didn't have his rhythm back, and it caused some turnovers. But then he does that.
Yeah, that's the thing. All of his buckets, it feels like they were threes. And then there's this possession with Jimmy, had Joel Embiid right back there. Why not pass back out?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to really quarrel with that shot, Amy. He's in the paint. But now that, again, that's one of those, I don't know if that was a block shot or a turnover. It looked to me like belatedly he tried to pass the ball. I don't know if he thought it was going to get blocked. You see the trajectory of that?
Yeah.
I don't believe that was a block shot there. And then the Sixers touch it so they don't get a shot again. That's the kind of plays I'm talking about. There were too many of those plays, you know, in the latter stages of the game.
How much do you think that's because of the rust? I mean, you're looking at James Harden, who hadn't played in a month. He's missed 14 games.
Yeah, that's a good point that, you know, when you incorporate a player like James back into your lineup, there's an adjustment. There's no question. And, you know, you can go out on the practice floor, but that's why you heard Doc pregame. He's looking forward to getting this thing started with his real guys, his real rotation, and try to figure it out from there.
Well, we saw that's how it ended in regulation. We did go to overtime after a couple of missed free throws and different things like that. And then you saw some of the same stuff, unfortunately, history kind of repeating itself, Marc.
Absolutely. Guys seem to be out of line, not on the same page, and self-forced errors to me.
And that was hard to watch. I mean, Joel Embiid turning it over uncharacteristically late a little bit in this one. And then we all saw all night, Jimmy, how much they fouled the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, that problem, Aim, and maybe we should give Houston some credit because it seemed to me right from the start of this game in the first quarter, Houston made 15 or had 15 free throws at the quarter. They were driving the ball to the basket. They were trying to go at the Sixers to force the Sixers to foul. And that was a big part of the reason that they were able to stay in this game because they shot so many free throws.
You saw that foul right there, Joel Embiid, which Doc Rivers challenged. It was upheld. You can see Joel Embiid absolutely, his arms came down, had fouled him out, and then he wasn't available for the rest of overtime and then double overtime. And this actually, Marc, wasn't a bad look.
He was open. He had a good look, just didn't knock it down. As you see, that shot is short as well. Watch. Which is a sign normally of tired legs.
Yeah, here's a guy that hasn't played in a month, so that's probably, and this is in overtime, and he had been playing quite a bit. I mean, that was a rough one right there. You can see the frustration on Joel Embiid when he fouled out, and obviously the frustration on there. Is it more frustrating because it is self-inflicted, as you mentioned, and it's coming against a team where, on paper, statistically, you should have beaten?
I'll be honest, I'll tell you for facts. Like, I literally said, I shut up a few times, who's the younger team here?
You did.
I really believe that we had a lot of mistakes that are uncanny of a veteran-led ball club. So I was a little disappointed in that. I don't know what to credit that to, but unfortunately it happened, and unfortunately it resulted in a lot of those self-forced errors.
Do you think it's because, Jim, that they're trying to work Harden back in and he hadn't been there for a month, that there was a little bit of miscommunication out there?
I'd say that's a factor, Aim, but that doesn't totally explain it. Marc, it's a good phrase. No, the experienced team, when you're in a situation like that late game, okay, you want to come down and get a shot. You might miss the shot. You miss them all, but you have to get a shot. And there were too many times. I'm going to say there were 5 times, 5, where the Sixers did not get a shot because of errant passing, trying to get a ball to another player.
Yeah, I think you're right. When I looked at that replay again for James Harden, it does look, the trajectory is kind of strange. So maybe last minute he decided to pass it, and maybe someone did get a hand on it because I think it was going down. But either way, they weren't able to get it done in regulation or overtime. It did go to double overtime, and they ended up losing. You see 132-123. The road trip does not end very well at all. And this is a team, Mark, that had been playing well in the absence of all their stars. Obviously, at one point, they had no Maxey, no Harden, and no Embiid. They went 3-1. And in the 14 games that Harden missed, they were 8-6. So is it a little bit more puzzling that they go on this road trip? And granted, the Cleveland Cavaliers are a good team and the Memphis Grizzlies are a good team. The Rockets are not, but they ended on a sour note, 0-3.
Yeah, Amy, you know, I gotta give credit to Houston. Houston played exceptionally well. They're young guys, and their backcourt played exceptionally well. You know, and the Sixers didn't. Sixers looked very unorganized, very out of keel, and I give a lot of credit because James Harden, what, 38, 39 minutes? You know, you get a lot of credit to him being thrust into the lineup, and then guys trying to find their way again. Now it's a refiguring it out process.
Yeah, James Harden, 4 of 19, and Jim, all 4 of his shots are those three-pointers. He does seemingly do better when there's a person on him in his three-pointers. We saw him miss one of those almost wide open, but is that also a sign of that kind of rust?
Yeah, I think rust and inactivity. Mark cited it early on, and I would agree wholeheartedly. You know, there's no, you heard Ala mention it on a few occasions, there's no substitute for playing NBA basketball. You can swim in the pool and, you know, do all those other things in terms of trying to get your cardio. But playing up, going up and down is the real thing. And because it's a double overtime game, obviously he's forced to play more minutes than you would have expected.
There was a lot of whistles in this one. A lot of whistles. You mentioned it, 15 free throw attempts for the Rockets in the first quarter. Mark, when you see a team that is going to the line, I mean, there was a parade up there at one point, and then they finished with 44 free throw attempts.
Whew.
Who was right? Like, what do you do to stop that? I mean, it has to be a cognizant effort, like, as a team, like, we have to stop fouling them.
You know, Amy, it's also a sign that we was being overly aggressive, but, you know, I'm a big, firm believer in if you're being aggressive, you're really wrong. So I think it's sometimes we can kind of just take a step back and say, oh, how can we correct that? But I don't. One thing to keep in mind, I thought we settled a lot for jump shots, and I truly believe the Houston Rockets had a mentality that we're getting into the paint, we're putting the ball for, we're attacking the pick and roll defense, and putting the Sixers on their heels. And when you're coming at somebody downhill, it makes you kind of back up, which makes you react. Where a lot of times you creating contact, which forced the referees to blow their whistle. Foul, offensive foul, and unfortunately it didn't go in the Sixers' favor tonight.
Back with our Colonial Nissan Game Changer, and we are looking at a double overtime. Early on, you're thinking, oh, all right, but no. The Rockets found their shooting rhythm, and Jim, they started making these buckets.
Yeah, and a terrific pass there from Şengün. And you're right, Amy, that three ball, I think the first 3 field goals by the Rockets. You're going to see the third one right there from the young fella, Jabari Smith.
And then there was actually a foul on Şengün, but it still counted from Jabari Smith. And then this is just the story of the game. Just needless dribbling, needless turnover. This, though, we have to show you. Jalen Green's going to want that back. I mean, just put it up near the basket, Marc Jackson.
He thinks he's in Peach Jam throwing out from the team.
Yeah, he's using the AAU circuit right there with that little razzle-dazzle. But you go to the play before that, James Harden trying to do through the legs, and he does that for timing. I get why he does that, but at some point you need to start making the execution. and you're looking at the final plays when Joel Embiid's out there and James Harden, and the pace is really slowed down, and that's been a problem, especially when you're on a time crunch, like at the end of regulation, end of overtime, and then that pace, and near the end of double overtime.
Amy, I couldn't have said it better. Pace, I think, is important and is a Sixers' friend. But unfortunately, I don't think the pace is high enough, especially if the 2 overtimes. And I know James Harden's still getting his bearings under him. We're going to talk James all day because he's a very important piece. But, like, something to keep in mind, like, while these guys was out, these rotation guys was earning quality minutes and earning faith in a coaching staff. You know, every now and then I wouldn't mind a guy saying, oh, let me get this over here, let me do something different. But, you know, we're going to put that ball in James' hand at the end of the games. We just got to live with the wins and with self-made errors.
Yes, there's 19 turnovers in this one. I think 18 of them felt like they came late in this game. All right, let's check in with a very frustrated Doc Rivers from Houston.
Giveaway. too many opportunities. We had way too many opportunities. Didn't execute down the stretch on either end. Just really a disappointing loss.
How did James look to you?
He looked fine. That's why we left him in. We kept checking. The game, surprisingly, was not played at a very high pace. So we thought it'd be more of this, and it wasn't. So we decided to keep him on the floor.
What is just that communication like with him in the midst of a game? Good.
It's more the communication with our other people, not with him.
So you basically said communication. What did anything disappoint you, or what stood out to you?
Yeah, we lost the game. That disappointed me. We fouled the entire game. Just bad, undisciplined fouls. I don't know how many times we fouled a three-point shooter. I know how many times you can foul a three-point shooter in the game. Whatever it was, we did that. They looked us in the eye, beat us off the dribble the entire night. We were late to helps, and number one, we just got to stop getting beat the entire game. So, defensively, I thought we were not at our best tonight, clearly. How many more offensive rebounds, back cuts we gave up tonight? That hurt us. And then down the stretch, offensively, I just didn't think we made the right plays. So.
Doug, do you think it's a matter of guys getting readjusted, playing with James and Joel?
Yeah, but, it's one game, so I'm not worried about that, Keith. I mean, we got Tyrese still has to come back. That's just part of it. But we still should have won the game. I didn't think that had anything to do with why we lost the game.
I go off of that. We talked a little bit about this before the game, but just what do you sort of foresee the next 3 days being like?
Well, this game will be a great film watching game. Establishing our roles will be what we'll do the next 2 days, 3 days. Getting some practice time together will be great as well.
Is Joel okay? I know he went to the locker room for
he had blood on his jersey. So I don't know what took so long. I was going crazy on the sideline because I kept asking, I kept looking, and no Joel. So, he had blood all over, so they had to take everything down, put it back on. I think the blood route was insane. Don't even get me started on that anymore. That was back in the 80s. We need to re-look at that rule, but we don't. So.
When you don't have him in double overtime,
yeah, it's just tough. But we still had our chances. That's going to happen. The first quarter, every player in our starting line was in foul trouble but one. So that killed our rotations to begin with. But then when you lose him down the stretch, I mean, clearly he was the guy that had it going, and we didn't have that option anymore.
Thank you, Coach.
That's a very obviously disappointed Doc Rivers. Execution, he said, was really poor down the stretch. They shot themselves in the foot, obviously, with all the turnovers, and he said that they're going to work on because they don't play again until Friday. It's just all of those things and then some. But they needed to execute better down the stretch. And Jim, the easy thing is to blame the coach, but at some point the players have to take it into other hands, especially when you've got a guy like James Harden who's been around the block a long time.
Yeah, but in fairness to James, Aim, and it's probably not like that excessive a number, but let's just say from 2 minutes left in the game through the 2 overtimes, if you come down and on 5 occasions you don't get a shot because you throw the ball away, that's what Doc is referring to when he says like the opportunities, and then the fouling at the other end. And he said it. I know it happened on 2 occasions. You can't foul 3-point jump shooters. You simply can't. Yes, you want to challenge the shot, but you have to do it with enough discipline. Either you're coming up short, or if you're on a flyby, you have to use that lane to the side of the player. You can't run straight at somebody, jump in the air to try to challenge the shot without crashing into them. And that's 6 free throws if you do it twice. It's a no-go.
Yeah, especially if they make the 3, and then you're in real trouble if you get into that kind of habit. But you mentioned something there, Jim, and Mark, I want to ask you about that. You saw a lot of these, they would work the shot clock down because whether it was Joel Embiid or James Harden, and then you're looking at 2-3 seconds left on the shot clock, and then they would turn the ball over or have like an ill-advised shot. Do they play too slow in that half court when you're thinking about how you need to get things going and they're just dribbling the ball around?
So, Amy, you asked a very important question. You said, do they need to, pretty much let me sum that up. For the whole shot clock, that ball only touched 2 people. So let's not sugarcoat it. Every now and then, we understand you want that ball in your two go-to guys' hands, but this team flows a lot better to me when more people touch the ball on possessions. When you come down to four or five times, only 2 people touch the ball, that makes everybody else stagnant. That makes everybody stale. So when a ball finally touches their hand, the production with the ball was probably the percentage of them being successful is probably not going to be too high. So after a couple of times on the floor, it's important to get other guys touches. And I think that could have helped tonight.
If you're out there and you're a coach and you see that for the 3rd and 4th and 5th time, do you start calling different sets?
You know, it's very difficult, Amy, because now it's overtime.
Yeah.
So it's like so the last 3 minutes of a game, the ball's going to go. Coach John Chaney used to say, the ball goes through and to someone in crunch time. 3 minutes ago, that's what you got. So you want that ball in James Harden going through him, hopefully going to Joel. But then when it comes to overtime is nothing but an extension with the last 3 minutes. So it's very difficult. The time allotted seems like eternity, but it's really not. So to try to get the ball in other people's hands during that time, maybe hard to do.
You ask a real good question here, Aim, and to me it falls under a category of the following: clock awareness. All right, if you are James Harden or you are Joel Embiid, don't kick me a ball with 2 seconds going to 1. What am I going to do? So they have to either make their move to get a shot or get rid of it a little earlier. And likewise, and which they did on a number of occasions, obviously, then the guy who's receiving that, you have to now make a play. Clock awareness. If Joel kicks a ball to somebody with 4 seconds, your job right now, make something happen. You don't have what should I? No, it's already too late, my friend. Okay? You have to know who you're playing with. You have to understand the situation. And I will give the Sixers a cop-out here. They have not been playing with James. We know his style is different. So you're going to have the clock situation become much more a factor now that James Harden is back. And the Sixers will have to cope with that.